and welcome back to the Roar Rundown here on the Ouachita Sports Digital Network. It is now week 6 of sports here at Ouachita, and we're here to recap another great week of fall sports. I'm Isaac Bourne here with Phil Byrd, and Phil, a lot of students going home for fall break this past week, and while the students might have had a lot of fun at home, getting time to just rest and relax, one thing about these sports teams here at Ouachita is they had anything but time to rest and relax. And, something we want to go right into is this football team. And Phil, starting with them, a 38-7 win against Arkansas Tech, coming off a big win against number 1 Harding 2 weeks ago. A lot of people saying that Ouachita was going to have a bit of a down week, looking at this game against the Wonder Boys as a bit of a trap game, but that they did anything but treat it as a trap game.
Absolutely. I think they propelled their experience from that Harding game, and they just kind of kept their foot on the gas. They kept going. Nate Tenbar is getting the start in this game, really getting a good opportunity to get his feet wet, to get some good experience. He passed for 128 yards, rushed for 59. Most of his success actually came with his legs on the field. He had 2 rushing touchdowns. Also there on the rush was Kendall Givens, 87 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns. He's a staple of Ouachita football. He has been for the last 4 years. He really will be missed when he's gone. Connor Flanagan with 90 receiving yards on 8 receptions. Once again, a staple of Ouachita football right now, consistently week in, week out, giving us a good performance. And I really think, to me, what the highlight was this game was that defense. We saw it versus Harding. Their D-line was amazing. Their secondary was amazing. Here we see it again, 6 sacks from the Ouachita defense. Rovell Carter with 2. Everyone else kind of getting a piece of the action there. Most of the line getting one. I think there were 4 others that got a sack during that game, and then Stephen Weston also with the interception in this game. They really, really contained the run really, really well. This is not necessarily a bad Wonder Boys team by any means, and I'm glad they didn't rest on their laurels. I'm glad they didn't take a week off. They really showed the GAC and everyone else in Division II watching why they should be the best team in the nation, and it shows in the polling that they went from number 5 to number 3. We saw a shake-up a little bit at the top of the AFCA poll there. Ouachita moving up a little bit in the polls. We saw a bit of a shake-up there at the top, but really they did a good job. They had a good showing, a good performance to show the rest of Division II why the Tigers are a good team and why the GAC is theirs to lose right now.
And looking at this Arkansas Tech team, like you said, they're not a bad Wonder Boys squad by any means, and especially this week with formerly injured quarterback Forrester coming in and getting time on the field. A lot of the fans in Russellville thought that this could give them the chance to spoil what has been a great season for Ouachita, but the Tigers come into this one just absolutely ready to dominate, and that's exactly what they did. Like you said with the stats, Kendall Givens finally getting one of his trademark games this season with that 87 rush yard performance along with those 3 touchdowns, just adding to that career touchdown number and just moving on up in that all-time Division II touchdown leaderboard, something that he very much hasn't been looking at, but he's getting up there, and it's going to be really interesting to see where he finishes off at the end of this season. Speaking of, though, the end of the season, with that nearing very close, the Tigers still find themselves as one of the few undefeated teams in this Division II football landscape, as they are only one of 6 undefeated teams in the nation now, with Grand Valley State taking their first loss of the season at home to Ferris State this past weekend. And now in Super Region 3, things are getting very interesting, as Ouachita is the lone undefeated squad in probably the most talented and stacked region in the entire country, as now a lot of people having Ouachita with that first round bye. We will see what happens, but with the NCAA regional rankings coming out, with them releasing that alphabetical list, Ouachita among the 10 teams in that list that are at the top. Obviously, only 7 of them are going to be in the playoffs. But Ouachita last year, being the last team out, does not want to be there this season. Now, with just 3 games left on the schedule, they're looking really good. They've got Southern Nazarene on Thursday. That's something where, much to the chagrin of Luke McConnell, the Tigers look to be able to take easily, even without the services of Eli Livingston, who is nursing that leg injury just a little bit up to this moment. Southern Nazarene 0-8. And then Oklahoma Baptist will, in Shawnee, that crowd can get a little bit crazy, but we know that the Tigers have beaten stronger competition this season. And then the big one is going to be the Battle of the Ravine. If the Tigers can win that one against a Henderson team that might be having a bit of a down year, but we always know that the Battle of the Ravine is going to be close no matter what. So if the Tigers can win these final 3 games, can win out this season, then it's looking very good that you Tiger fans might be able to get one weekend off of football before it's time to pack the cliff for what looks to be some playoff action here in Arkadelphia, Arkansas. And we're excited for that. But like you said, those rankings, AFCA, the Tigers jumped Kutztown, moving up to number 3 in that, which is crazy now. The Tigers having their highest ranking since 2022, and then D2Football.com putting them at number 5 in the nation. And so, just accolade after accolade after accolade this Tiger team gets, and just exciting things happening here on the campus.
Absolutely, and I think I said it before. Right now, the GAC is the Tigers to lose. Southern Nazarene coming up next week. The Crimson Storm, that should be a game where they go in and take care of business. It's Halloween. Let's hope there's not a scare from the Crimson Storm in that game. But it should be a game where we get in, we get out, we get things done. I'm not saying that they should take a week off by any means. I'm not saying that they are in any way going to not take this game seriously. But this should be a game that they can win very, very easily. And then I think going on the road to Shawnee, any road game in our conference is going to be somewhat of a challenge. But I think this Oklahoma Baptist squad is very vulnerable. And I think the Tigers, statistically and talent-wise, are definitely the better team. So I think we should be seeing a very, very interesting Battle of the Ravine game, that last game of the season. I'm really, really excited for it. I'm excited to see if the Tigers can maintain an undefeated season and head to the playoffs off of a big win.
And I'm sure you look at this team, one thing they've been very, very adamant about all season is that next game up mentality. So they're not thinking about Oklahoma Baptist. They're not thinking about Henderson. They're thinking about Southern Nazarene. And that's exactly what you should be thinking about Thursday night at 6 o'clock right here live on the Ouachita Sports Digital Network for a Halloween broadcast that should be free of scares but should be full of excitement at the Cliff and on OSDN. But moving on to volleyball, this weekend, the Tigers themselves went on the road back to Oklahoma. You see these weekend trips going to Oklahoma a lot for Coach Allison Frizzell-Kaiser. This time, things going similar to what they usually do, but the Tigers come home with a couple new accolades, as Northwestern Oklahoma State was up first on Friday, and they took that one in 5, a tough, gritty win for the Tigers. And not just that, Coach Allison Frizzell-Kaiser picking up her 100th career win as head coach of the volleyball squad. And then on top of that, junior Courtney Hansen picks up her 3,000th career assist in the purple and black. And I'm sure she's excited, now at 5th all-time among setters, or just among players for Ouachita. And then finally, you see this team pick up a very gritty win where Emily Adams has her second 20 kill performance of the season, alongside Kaylee Thedford as well, another exciting sophomore for this squad, picking up her career high 5 blocks. And so, before we move on to the game that happened the day after, just what did you see? What do you see in this Tiger squad, just them able to fight in this one?
I think we've seen it before this season. The Tigers are conditioned well, and they're able to outlast their opponents. Very, very early, they were very evenly matched. Northwestern Oklahoma State took the first set. Ouachita took the second, and then they went down 2-1 after that third set. You can kind of start to sweat, but they really outmatched them in the final two sets. They outscored them 40-30 in those final two. They did really, really well. And, of course, that fifth set is going to be a little lower scoring. It was really, really close, actually. That fifth set was 15-13. So really what you see from these Tigers is just an ability to outlast their opponents and really just keep fighting till the very end. I think we see that very, very well. Definitely huge props to Frizzell Kaiser on her 100th career win for OBU, and huge props to Courtney Hansen as well. She's someone we've talked about quite a bit on this podcast, just for her amazing consistent performances. She's still a junior, and she's fifth all-time in assists. I'm really looking forward to seeing how the rest of the season shapes up. Maybe she can move up a little bit on that spot. I know she's probably not thinking about that, but I certainly am. I certainly think it would be pretty cool. And then she has a whole nother season ahead of her. I'm really, really excited to see how she does for the rest of the year.
And then moving on to the game after that, things looked a little bit different in Weatherford as they moved from Alva to Weatherford. And the number one ranked Southwestern Oklahoma State Bulldogs took care of business at home over the Tigers. The first time Ouachita volleyball has been swept this season. But one good thing coming out of that win, senior Avery Giles picking up her 1,000th career assist, a big accomplishment for her, something that the Tigers can at least take home with them in a 1-1 road trip when we've seen many of those this season. But, this Tigers team now turns their head to this week where we're getting into the final stretch of this season. So, how do you shrug off a loss like that?
Well, I think the Bulldogs have kind of been something of a white whale for this Tigers team these last few seasons. Their last win over them coming in 2018, nearly 6 years ago now. So what we've seen is, and I think they certainly have the capacity to do this, is they just have to have that next game up capacity. We talked about it with football. We're going to talk about it again with volleyball. We may talk about it again later in the podcast. But this team needs to be able to have short-term memory when it comes to a game like this. It was not the best performance for Ouachita. They can recognize that and move on to the next one. And I think that's what they have to do as they go and take on the Mule Riders down in Magnolia.
And that's exactly what the Tigers have up next. They want to get that revenge over Southern Arkansas after the Mule Riders handed the Tigers their first and only, to this point, home loss in conference play as the Mule Riders came in to Arkadelphia, specifically the Sturgis Physical Education Center, and took down the Tigers 3-1 earlier this season. The Tigers hoping to go into Magnolia and do the same thing to the almost rivals just a couple hours down the road. But now, moving on to women's soccer, I would say a bit of a rough week for the ladies in purple at Cluckfield, but could have gone worse. As we look at this team, they started off the week on Wednesday in Shawnee, facing off in a GAC title game rematch against Oklahoma Baptist. Last time Ouachita faced Oklahoma Baptist in Shawnee was when they won the GAC Championship. This time it going the other way for the Bison, but with it just being the regular season, not too big a stakes up to this point, as the Tigers fell 2-1 after an insane final minute goal by Lex Williamson of the Bison. But then moving to Saturday, the Lady Tigers fighting with the Crimson Storm, and it just ending up in a tie at 0-0, a complete shutout for both teams at home at Cluckfield this past Saturday. While most fans were home for fall break, the Lady Tigers went in and toughed through a gritty game where really there wasn't much going on. In that game, you saw 5 shots on goal for the Tigers, none of which going in, and only 2 for the Crimson Storm. Very little action in the boxes for both teams.
Absolutely. Going back to that Oklahoma Baptist game, I think we saw a great gritty game. Obviously earlier in the season, Ouachita able to take a 2-1 win over Oklahoma Baptist. They've kind of traded those results now. So now that they're 1-1 on the season against this Oklahoma Baptist team. And, Tegan Yowzy with the assist on their only goal in that game, Jordan Nelson finishing there. But Tegan Yowzy really having a great season, 5 assists overall leading the team. But really, I think we saw a game that they wouldn't have liked to lose it, but there definitely could have been much worse results than a 2-1 win against a very, very good Bison team. And then I think we see against Southern Nazarene, that's the team that they're tied with for the number 1 spot, or the team that they're competing with for the number 1 spot in the GAC this season. I'm fine with a 0-0 tie there. It's not necessarily the ideal goal, but remember, draws, wins, those both get you points in conference play here. Those both take you a step closer to winning a regular season championship here. And, Southern Nazarene, a good team. I'd rather a 0-0 tie than a 1-0 loss there to Southern Nazarene. So honestly, I'm fine with a draw there.
And like you said, those points being a big factor going on into the season. Not points as in goals, but like you said, 2 for a win, 1 for a tie. The Tigers now battling with that Crimson Storm team to host the GAC Championships after last year Oklahoma Baptist getting that call. But now the Tigers tied with SNU, and Arkadelphia looking to be one of the hosts for this women's soccer championship for the GAC. If it is, we'll be there. We'll be hosting and for all the games of that GAC championship, and you will hear this voice on the microphone for all of them. So if they are hosted here, make sure to tune in here on the Ouachita Sports Digital Network. But as for that, the Lady Tigers will head on the road this week to Oklahoma as they take on SWOSU in Weatherford, and then move to Alva to face Northwestern Oklahoma State and the Lady Raiders of that team. And, the Tigers earlier this season tying with that Northwestern Oklahoma State team, and then also beating that SWOSU team earlier this season, hoping to take 2 wins in those so that they can move up on in those standings with the harder part of their schedule out of the way.
Absolutely. That Northwestern Oklahoma State game earlier this season, ending on I guess you would call it a buzzer beater penalty, a really, really impressive ending and a heartbreaking ending for Northwestern Oklahoma State. Absolutely. As we go into Alva, as the Tigers go into Alva, it'll be really, really interesting to see how their coach composes himself and his team. And see if they can try to get revenge there. But really, what I saw from that game was a very, very evenly matched squad. Tigers dominating in possession for most of that game. So I think we can expect them to go in, and I think Northwestern Oklahoma State is a good team that will put up a very good fight. But I'm really, really hoping that the Tigers can take one on the road in Alva. And then also against SWOSU, obviously, we want the Tigers to sweep them on the season.
And the Lady Tigers will hope to do that this week. Now, though, moving to the other side of the pitch for men's soccer. Not exactly the week that Coach Wes Hollyfield would have wanted out of his team. We're just going to stay here a little bit really quickly as we talk about the Tigers' road trip this past week, heading first to Wichita, Kansas, where Newman takes down the Tigers 4-1 in that one, and then the Tigers heading to Hays, Kansas, to take on Fort Hays State, with the result being a little bit different this time, as an 8-0 loss gives the Tigers one of their biggest losses as far as deficit goes in program history. Not exactly a high week for the Tigers.
No, definitely not. A few bright spots in that game in Newman, or in Wichita. A few bright spots was Yao Gonzalez, certainly with a lone goal. Dylan Stahl keeping them with only 1 goal in the net in that first half against Newman, and then only 2 goals going in the back of the net in that first half against Fort Hays State. Obviously, a little bit of a disappointing performance in the second half of those games. But overall, I think what we're seeing from the Tigers is a good start to the game. They just need a little more grittiness to hold on, and I think that's something that will come from experience, and it'll come from playing under Coach Wes Hollifield for a little bit longer. He's only in his first season. But I think that's something that the Tigers can be looking for in the future.
And the Tigers head back on the road this week to face off against more conference opponents, and so hoping to turn it around or at least take back a little bit of momentum after a week that the Tigers would want to forget. Now, though, moving on to the main event for this week has to be cross country, as the Lady Tigers of this cross country team take their second GAC title in 3 years. Just an all-around amazing performance for this Lady Tiger squad, and one of the bigger surprises of the weekend coming from junior Alli Hylkema taking fourth overall in the 5K event, with Izzy Bro finishing very close behind her in second. Something that, Bro has been dominating all season, but then Hylkema being just another bright spot for this Lady Tiger squad. And then on top of that, Kate Noctegal being another big factor, taking seventh overall in that event as well. And then even just going down the line, you also have Macy Cash and Elise Knight being big names as well. They also are named to the second team All GAC. And just this women's cross-country team, just all around a great performance, beating Arkansas Tech out for their second GAC championship in 3 years. And I mean, Phil, it's the first of what we hope to be many GAC titles coming this year for Ouachita.
Absolutely. We saw Hylkema, Bro, and Noctegal, as you said before, they all made first team All GAC, as well as doing very, very well, both getting in the top, or all getting in the top 7 in that 5K event. And then second team All GAC, we also see Macy Cash and Elise Knight doing really, really well for the season. This is a very, very good team. What I kind of want to shout the cross-country team out, both men's and women's, is their academic performance. We saw a really, really amazing 32 academic All-Americans coming from this cross-country squad. That's something that, not a lot of teams can say, that consistently across the board, their team are really exemplifying a student athlete, and especially that student part. We have a lot of very, very good athletic teams on campus and in the GAC, but really this team resembles exactly what you want from student athletes, because they really, really are getting things done in the classroom as well. It's really, really impressive.
And Hylkema, like you said, a great not just athlete but also student, as she also is one of the directors of the Ouachita News Show. And luckily we had Jillian Covington, one of our representatives, able to sit alongside Alli and talk to her earlier this week. So here's that.
All right, now I'm here with Alli Hylkema, our new conference champ for women's cross country and track. So Alli, where are you from?
I'm from Jackson, Tennessee.
Okay, and how long have you been running for?
I've been running since 5th grade.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so you've been at it a while, and you run both cross country and track?
I do.
Okay.
In cross country, we run the 5K, and then in track, it's a little bit more divided just because there are so many more events to choose from. Mm-hmm. So I run more distance meets. Okay. The 10K and the 5K is typically what I go for.
Okay, that's awesome. So how's it been being on such a new but large team? What has that been like?
Yeah, that's a great question. In high school, I really didn't have a team at all. Mm. It really was, we struggled to get 5 people.
Oh my goodness.
In high school. And so coming into college, it was such a learning experience to not only do cross country to compete as an individual, but to also compete as a team and to run and compete well for my team, as opposed to just meeting my own individual goals. Right. And so it's really been an adventure, but such a blessing also to know that my team is for me and that we're working for each other. We're working with one another and to push each other and to, surpass our own goals with one another. So it's just a very big blessing that I'm super, super grateful for, just coming from a high school with really
nobody.
Nobody. Yeah.
So the women's team and the men's team have been really accomplished this season. So tell me a little bit about the past few races that led to y'all being conference champs. How has that been?
Yeah, it's a great question too. Well, we've had for cross country, we typically have a meet every other weekend.
Okay.
And so we've traveled to Florida. We've stayed home for 2 of our meets.
Mm-hmm.
We've traveled to Dallas Baptist. And just within the midst of those races, we've really been working on pack running.
Okay.
So running as a team, our top 5, our top 7, really getting after it together, and during a race finding each other and pushing one another during a race.
That's awesome.
Just because in cross country, it is such an individual sport.
Yeah.
You know, you got to find each other, you got to pack run in order to do it as a team. So definitely we've done super, super well at that this year. In a multitude and a collection of races, we've really gotten that technique down of finding each other and motivating each other and encouraging one another. And so that's been a big aspect of it. And also just like promoting confidence in our own selves and our own capabilities. Having trust in our teammates, but also in ourselves. So like that individualistic aspect has been there and has continued to build from race to race, and that confidence. So definitely just that going into conference week was, you know, really, really big.
I bet that helped a lot.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
It did.
So have you seen any like personal growth or personal records be broken this season? Like how has your personal season been?
Yeah, it's been really good. It's been very rewarding, especially after working so diligently this summer, like on your own and on my own. And so coming in this season and seeing that hard work pay off has really meant a lot. I have a new 5K school or personal record.
Oh my gosh, congratulations.
Thank you. So last year, I think that my personal record PR for cross country was an 18:50, like 40, 18:30 in track.
In that range. Okay.
Yeah. Maybe 18:28, but that's only in track.
Right.
Cross country was probably 18:50. But this year, I broke that record and at the OBU Ouachita meet, and I hit an 18:11.
Okay, that's amazing.
So it was really, really good and really.
I bet that's very rewarding.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. So regionals is not this weekend, but it's next weekend.
Yes.
Right? And so are y'all excited preparing for that one?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
It's in Joplin, Missouri, so we'll get to travel a little bit. We've run there before.
Okay.
So we kind of know what the terrain is like. We kind of know how to run and what we're doing. And the difference between regionals and conference, you know, with regular season is that regular season, you're just running a 5K. Regionals is a 6K.
Oh, wow.
So really this week we're honing in on those longer workouts, those more endurance workouts, but also targeting that speed as well. So it's been like the training has been a little bit tweaked, but I think we're ready.
And is there another step beyond regionals, depending on how well y'all do, or is that the end of the road for the season?
There is, and it is a very, very difficult feat.
Okay.
So in order for us to go to nationals, we are gonna essentially have to all run PRs in our 6Ks. And so our top 5 girls are probably going to have to hit 21:50, which is a pretty fast time for anybody. And so this is definitely like a huge goal of ours. If we hit it, like that's awesome and that's incredible.
Right.
But also if we don't, like the work's already been done and we did all we
y'all
could
already
do,
had such a successful season.
Yeah, we've already had our successful season, and definitely still shooting for that goal, but happy with whatever the outcome.
Absolutely. I love that mindset. Well, congratulations on everything you've accomplished, and good luck at regionals next weekend.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
All right, thanks, Jillian. Alli had a great season, finishing with a time of 18:50 in that 5K earlier this week in the GAC Championships. On the other side, for the men, finishing 4th in the GAC Championships, and we saw some great performances all around, and hoping that, and with such youth on this team, hoping that they can even build upon that performance after East Central really took the Great American Conference by storm this season on the men's side in that 8K event. And now, though, moving on to swimming as our final, for now, sport that we're going to be talking about. As before we go to swimming, I do have to mention wrestling coming up very soon, as this Saturday, the wrestling team is in action for the first time this season as they head to Little Rock to go against other MIAA competition. And so excited for that. But now moving to Kirksville, Missouri, was the men's and women's swim team of Ouachita Baptist and the Tiger Sharks. The men's side had a unbelievable performance for them. This time finally able to put on those tech suits and go fast, and you saw that happen. Daniel Metsaros, the freshman out of Hungary, having himself a weekend in the 200 freestyle, finally breaking that sought-after school record that he wanted in a time of 1:37.39, and then also alongside it said, why not? I'll take the 500 freestyle record as well in a time of 4:29.62. 2 days, 2 great performances, and that doesn't even go to mention the relays as well.
Absolutely. 15 event wins on the weekend. I'm going to say that one more time because it's a bit higher than I'm used to. 15 event wins on the weekend for that men's team. It really, really is just all around dominance. An average margin between the 2 days of 76.5 points. 76.5 points. That's just so impressive. Metzaro is really, really impressing me. I'm excited to, and we won't see it this week, but I'm excited to see him come back and do that at our pool as well. I really, really want to see his name go up on the pool record as well here. Really, we just see an amazing meet from everyone on the Tiger Sharks.
And I would say all the event wins this weekend, but we'd be here for forever as the Truman State Bulldogs in a bit of a rebuilding process, with A.J. Kohler being the big name for them, but he's just unable to do anything with Metsaros getting just about anything he wanted in that pool in Kirksville, Missouri. And headed up by Jacob Ragsdale, former Ouachita swimmer himself, that Bulldog squad looking promising for the future though, and I'm sure Coach Stephen Bostic, coaching against one of his former swimmers, is just excited to go on the road to face off against one of his friends and former athletes. But just a great 2 days for the men's team. The women's team going just as usual as well. You saw the highlight performers, Keely Holcomb, you saw Anna Phelps, both of them winning 2 events apiece. But then Rachel Del Angel picking up her first event win in a dual meet this year with a win in the 100 butterfly. Del Angel has been one of the more talented sprinters on this Ouachita squad. Excited to see if she can build off of this performance now, as she will also have that opportunity. And so, before we talk about what's up next, talk about this women's team a little bit.
Absolutely. Holcomb and Phelps, swimmers that we talk about week in, week out. Holcomb with wins in the 200 breast and 200 IM. Really, really endurance-heavy events there. But speaking of endurance-heavy, we didn't even get to Phelps. Phelps with the 400 IM and 200 fly. 2 of my least favorite events when I was a swimmer, because they're just so endurance-heavy. They're so long events, and you really, really have to be able to stick with it in those long events where your muscles are going to get really, really tired. They did a great job and really, really showing the future of this program. Speaking of the future of this program, Rachel Del Angel doing a great job in this, winning the 100 butterfly. We haven't seen a lot from her so far this season. We have in terms of wins, but definitely very, very happy that she got her first under her belt in that match.
And especially with all of these 3 girls, Holcomb and Del Angel being juniors and Phelps being a sophomore, they have another year under their belts. And the Lady Tiger Sharks just keep recruiting good recruits to this squad this season. Britta Andrus being a big name that has improved in the program so far and looks to be a staple in this squad to come, and then also picking up a good number of women recruits out of the class of 2025. Going to be interesting to see what Bostic can do with the talent and recruits he's bringing in. Let's move on, though, from this women's team to what is on the horizon for this Tiger Shark squad, where just in about a week from Friday, it's going to be a good old classic Battle of the Ravine as the Tiger Sharks head across the street to the Duke Wells Natatorium for what looks to be the first time ever that this men's Tiger Shark team has the advantage going across the street. It's going to be interesting because looking at this men's team, separate from the past couple seasons, this men's team is 0-14 and let's just say in recorded history since 2011 is 0-14 at the Duke Wells Natatorium, has not picked up a win on the road against Henderson State, hoping to do that for the first time ever with this Tiger Shark team coming in with a lot of momentum. Obviously, the Red Wave having a lot of momentum as well, as they just picked up a win in Little Rock over a Division I St. Louis. It's going to be interesting seeing how both of these teams come off those wins. You're looking over at Henderson, they've got Patrick Dabrowski, one of the bigger names out of Poland for this team. He is a remnant of that squad last season that won the New South Intercollegiate Swim Conference for Henderson. And Dabrowski already in mid-season form, looking like he can really pose a threat to this Tiger squad. Meanwhile, though, this Tiger Shark squad has some talent as well. We already talked about Metzaros. We've talked in the past about Vince Paul, but also they've got talent across the board. Michael Higgins, another talented freshman. Jean-Bor Budosho, another talented swimmer. He's a sophomore. And then Sam Ragsdale in those sprint events. Henderson's always really taken those sprint events, but with the loss of Jack Armstrong and Lamar Taylor, it's going to be fun to see if Henderson kind of steps back on those sprint events and tries to focus more on some distance races. But it's going to all come down to the wire at the Duke Wells Natatorium next Friday, and I'm excited to watch that one. Meanwhile, on the women's side, the women's team, Lady Tiger Sharks taking a win last year at the Duke Wells Natatorium, hoping to do it again this year. And while we have seen home wins for this Tiger Shark team, they're only 2-21 over Henderson in the past 13 years.
I know. I know you don't want to toot your own horn, but you were a part of that team last year that got the win here at Ouachita against that Henderson team, taking one in their 2 wins all time or in recorded history in the Battle of the Ravine. I really think this Henderson team is vulnerable. Obviously, this is not a team to look over or to scoff at by any means. They're ranked 13th in the nation for a reason. By the most recent polls, I fully expect them to go up in future polls, to be honest with you, with a win over St. Louis there. Not a bad D1 team at all. But I really, really think that the Tigers can go into the Duke Wells Natatorium. I think that they can win those sprint events. I think we're going to see a battle of the Eastern Europeans here, with some Hungarians, with some Polish swimmers going against each other. And I'm really, really excited just to see what this men's team can do. This is going to be their biggest challenge of the season thus far. Obviously not challenging meets before. They got a good win over Delta State earlier this season. But this will be their biggest challenge so far this season. I think they're up for it. I think they really, really have a good chance of taking their first win away in this series. But I'm just excited for the match.
And it will be an exciting one at the least, and we're excited for that one coming up in the future. The Tiger Sharks coming into that one ranked 20th in the nation. The Red Wave will come into that one ranked 13th in the nation. And also this meet having a lot of stakes going into this coaches poll, which will be released just days following this meet. And so whoever wins this one is going to really get the biggest nod in the CSCAA poll that comes out once a month during the D2 swimming season. Basketball season on the horizon. We've got football just ramping up and getting exciting. Everything looking like it's all leading up to what looks to be one of the most exciting Novembers in the history of Ouachita, and we will be here with you for it, and especially we will all be here with you for it on the Ouachita Sports Digital Network. So make sure to always tune in, ring that little bell on the YouTube channel to make sure that you can see all of our live broadcasts. But as for me and as for Phil, this has been the Roar Rundown. We want to thank you for watching here on the Ouachita Sports Digital Network.